Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hairy News. And yes, as you can see, I'm all by myself. And I will be for a little bit. Chewie's going to come and jump in when he gets home. He's at a work do right now. And when he is available, which will probably be the second half of the hour, he will be coming on over to say g'day and jumping in when he gets here. So, because of that, we're not entirely sure what Chewie will be involved in and won't be involved in, but I will tell you one thing. If you were with us last night, my monumental balls up with what I was attempting to do got us cut off. I won't be doing that tonight. I won't be touching the equipment. The dog is asleep in the corner. So I thought rather than do that, what I'll just do is I'll just show you a photo from today. So there's a photo from today. That's on my Twitter feed. It says #active listening. We went to Bunnings today and we picked up some stuff to do some work around the house. Don't know if you know this if you're a dog owner, but you know you can take your dog into Mitre 10 Bunnings. They're pretty stoked about it. They're pretty cool with it. So there you go. That was a Twitter that went out today. #active listening. As she's sitting at my feet, waiting to find out what the next command is. It's normally wait, down, stay. That's how it kind of works. So yeah, I'll be with you by myself for the first. Who knows? I don't know. Chewie's at a work thing, and it'll be some timetable. He might be here at 1:45. He might be here at 1:30. Don't know. But we will get on with getting on. So good evening to you all. Evening, David. Evening, Mr. Anderson. Hairy Newses. Kia ora, Gareth. Gareth made a very funny comment on Twitter today. I'm assuming it's the same Gareth. Emma, kia ora. Jezza from up the block. Evening all. Rob says that Chewie will be involved in unspeakable crimes. And yes, of course, that is 100% true. Because if we know anything about Chewie, it is unspeakable crimes and Chewie go hand in hand. G'day all. G'day Nala says JN. Brad says hello. Paul says we're both handsome. I don't know if that's me and the dog or whatever. Dog's a bitch actually. So what would she be? Would she still be handsome? I don't know. Vicky says hello. And on we go. So tonight on the show, a bunch of stuff we're going to be talking about. And as we said last night, election season is ramping up. So I imagine for the next 20 weeks, give or take, 140 something days, we will be pretty inundated with daily New Zealand political conversations. Yes, we will still keep an eye on international stuff. Yes, we will still be focusing on what's happening in America and beyond if it warrants it. Well, it always warrants it, but if it's important enough for us to focus on that at night, we will definitely do that as well. G'day, Peter. G'day, Guru. But yes, even today, the continuing story of a National Party trying to walk back some racially charged comments. We'll have a look at that tonight. What else are we looking at? Simon Wilson, who doesn't join us tonight. I know he often joins us. I've been talking to Simon and he said that he's got he's busy tonight. He's got some stuff on, but we are going to be looking at his article tonight. And if you do follow me on Twitter, you probably saw something I stuck out about a half hour ago. Where is it? I'll bring it up for you in case you didn't. And the comment, this is a quote from Simon's article, which we'll look at later on tonight. It says this. It says, my tweet says, want a nightmare? Check this out from Simon Wilson's article today. Quote, if ACT wins, say 20% and National 30%, ACT will be a powerful force in the new government. So powerful, it will be well placed to become the dominant party on the right in 2026. If ACT gets 20%, and they're in the mid-teens now, Simon thinks that they will be well placed to become the dominant party on the right in 2026. If that does not fill you with this is a technical political term, shit ton of fear, I don't know what does. So I said before that Gareth was very funny because I put this tweet out as well. This is not going to be a show of just me going through my tweets. I'm not padding. It was just a thing. I was thinking about it today. I was thinking about it was after I read Simon's article, actually. I was thinking about, should National get in? Now, this obviously comes from my left-wing perspective and my left-wing bias. Right, so I get that. So you don't need to message me saying, "Oh, you're one-eyed left," and I'm like, "Yes, correct." The problem is you can't kind of hassle someone for being something that they openly speak about being. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, I have a left-wing bias. Yes, I am on the left. Yes, we've said that since day one. So is Chewie. That's who we are. However, I will always say back to you, I believe that we are fair and we will call a spade a spade. Tonight, in fact, we're talking about a pretty embarrassing moment for the Labour Party. Something that may be nefarious. It may have more legs to it, but at the moment it's a pretty embarrassing moment on Twitter for a Labour Party MP. Doesn't portray her in a good light. We'll have a look at that. So anyway, I was reading Simon's article today, and I just thought, if National gets in, that will be a nightmare for the country. It will be an absolute debacle for the country. You know what? If you're in the top third, you'll probably be fine. If you're in the bottom 2/3, you'll probably be average. If you're in the bottom third, it will be, like it always is under National, it will be an absolute abomination for you. You will be far worse off. So I put this out there as a tweet. There were some in the UK who voted Brexit as a protest vote, right? So there was lots of people who voted for Brexit as a protest vote. Then it passed, and then they were in a state of regret. The day after, or the few days after Brexit went through, there was big headlines in the UK newspapers. One was regret, and the other one was remorse. And I just said, should National and ACT get in this year? I wonder what the word will be for those regretting their decision for putting in what will be a destructive government. So for those people who vote for National or ACT as a protest vote, if they were to get in, I wonder what word they will be coming up with. And Gareth, who I think is the same Gareth who is with us right now, you can confirm that or not, Gareth, says you'd feel more than remorseful, probably seamorseful. It's very good. It's very good. Or a heavy case of acid refluxin. I've said it before, guys. You are not allowed to be funnier than us. It's against the rules. So yeah, we'll talk about Simon's article. We're going to talk about what happened to a Labour Party MP to do with Twitter and a bit of an embarrassing moment. And we're going to just probably wrap up, but continue with that conversation a little bit about Māori place names, because Simeon Brown today just hit all of the best talking points. And you can see what happens in politics. This is not about National. This is about all of them, because on some level, they all do it. They say something publicly, any MP. It doesn't quite gel or fit in, or perhaps it's something that they haven't really got right. They go into the PR spin room, they go into Spin Alley, Spin City, and they figure, how can we spin this to make it feel like, no, you've misunderstood what I said. What I really meant was, and Simeon Brown's done that today. He's changed completely his spin on why he said road signs and signs should only be in English. But we'll get to that and have a look at that. And also have a look at what the Prime Minister said about the racist underbelly. That might be not a direct quote. We'll check on that. We'll go from there. Let's also say a big, huge thanks to our patrons. I acknowledged Peter last night, but I hadn't put him on the wall yet. So there's Peter Blakely. Welcome to the whānau, Peter. And also KJS. Now, KJS has been a patron for a while, but at some stage today, KJS moved from coffee runner status to FUEL, fuel status. So thank you, KJS, for upping your membership, your Patreon, up one layer. We appreciate that. And if you like the kind of stuff we're putting out there, and there was a lot, actually, I've talked about Twitter a bit today, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see and you'll know that there was a very active Twitter page today. I think I put out about 5 clips from last night's show today. And they're the kinds of things that we always say, if you want to support what we're doing, you can do it numerous ways. You can, be a patron, patreon.com/Big Hairy News. You can just watch and, like and subscribe. You can share our stuff, follow me on Twitter, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you share our stuff around and tell people about us, then that helps as well. It's all ways that we can get together, and we will continue on this journey together. So, and as you'll be aware, and I apologize about this, I am not going to be as visually involved with the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now, as we are when there's 2 of us here, because I'm loading up audio and video and stuff, and normally Chewie's watching this. So I'm just having a quick squiz through if there's anything that really needs to jump out there. Yep. No, lots of good chat between you guys. That's cool. So let's have a look at this, shall we? There was an interesting exercise done today I'm not entirely sure. And let me say one other thing. This is like touch wood. I'm saying this out loud because Murphy's Law says if I don't say it, it will happen. But if I say it out loud, it won't happen. The only time we seem to have a problem with audio is when I'm by myself and I can't test it beforehand. So in fact, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I just do this? And then I can start reading and you guys can tell me whether you hear it or not. And if you hear it, then we know we're going. Hang on, where's my music channel? There it is. A little bit of music in the background, chilling away. Do, do, do. Do, do, do. There's no music at the moment, by the way, so you shouldn't be able to hear it. You should be able to hear something now. Do, 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 do. And I'll fade it down nicely and gently. And whilst I'm reading the first part of this article, you can just mention in the chat if you can hear that, and that means we're all good. It's a little bit of overkill. I was probably fine, but you know, Murphy's Law. So let's have a look at what happened with Simeon Brown today. We know the story so far. We know the story about what's happened so far. Basically, there was this idea from Waka Kotahi now this is a really important point. When a road sign needed to be replaced, right? When a roadside sign and some location signs needed to be replaced. So not like look at this government wasting all this money going out and just taking down perfectly good road signs. That's not the case. When a road sign needed to be replaced, and remember we've just had cyclones go through the top half of the North Island, and there's probably quite a few of them though. When that time happens, replacing them with road signs that very clearly, and we'll even bring up an image, shall we? So everyone can see how clearly. Where is it? Very clearly, and there it is, there's one. In English and Māori, say what the new road sign would look like. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's when they needed to be replaced. Now, Simeon Brown came out, and I'm paraphrasing right now, but he said, we all speak English. They should be in English. And I don't care what people say about is it or isn't it. It's a complete dog whistle. Now, Simon Wilson's article actually goes on a little bit about this, and I think he's got some very interesting points. But if you've been with us, I feel like I don't need to have the screen on here. I should be there. Hi. If you've been with us for a long time, you'll know and you'll have heard me say before such and such's dilemma, Luxon's dilemma, Plunkett's dilemma, that they're trying to attain this audience, which is a new audience. It's further to the right, and it seems to be emboldened by perhaps the far right world, would be it MAGA or somewhere else, to be more vocal in their opposition of the norms. Now, in general, I guess we should say we don't have a problem with people being opposition of the norms, but it's the conspiracy theorist world, it's the QAnon world, it's the anti-vaxxers, anti-mandates, anti-masker world, right? And we've been saying for quite a long time, and Plunkett's a good example of this, is that he's going to get to a point where he has a dilemma, and his dilemma is going to be, does he keep spouting off the bullshit that he actually doesn't believe, which actually he's pulled back on, they've written about them, or and lose this new audience he's building, or does he stick with it and basically grift? Now, Luxon's got the same dilemma, and we've talked about this before. We've talked about, do you remember he said something to a fallen Māori leader in Māori on, well, he wouldn't have said it, someone wrote it for him on his Facebook page, and the racist just came out in force about him putting Māori language on his own Christopher Luxon page. And so the dilemma is, how do you placate that racist element, that misogynistic element, that QAnon element, because you want their vote, without turning off the quote-unquote normies who have been with you for the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years voting for National? So when the dog whistle term has been coming out for Simeon Brown, it is 100% what it is, because what National's actively trying to do is attract those people who think those bloody uppity Maori are getting just too much at the moment. They're trying to attract them to vote for them whilst not turning off the centrist. Simon Wilson talks about this, but I guess I wanted to earmark to you, if you've been with us for a while, you know we've been talking about this for quite a long time. And this, to come back to the Simeon Brown situation, is absolutely a dog whistle to those people. So I'm going to play some video very shortly, and I want to show you what a political figure will do when they get their talking points for the day. So what's happened is they've gone into the PR spin alley, spin room in National, and they've gone, how can we walk this back so we don't lose face, but we don't have to say, no, we were wrong? How do we walk back Simeon's comments about they should only be in English because we all speak English, paraphrased, so it doesn't look like we've dog whistled, so it doesn't look like we were wrong, but it also to placate that centrist voter who might actually hear what he said and go, oh, I'm a bit uncomfortable with that. How do you do that? So we'll look at that through the night as well. What is wrong with this? Brown challenged over bilingual road signs. We'll get to the video shortly, but there's an important part for this, and I want to say it again. This is from the One News, I believe, article. Yep. Waka Kotahi, the transport agency, last week launched a consultation on bilingual road signs. It proposes using bilingual signs, again, really important, when the old ones are being replaced. Waka Kotahi has also said it's done considerable research around safety. Got all that? Considerable research around safety means, this is the thing where they make a balls up, any political party, but in this case it's national. When they make a balls up, they look for a way to kind of find that they can actually, when you have an argument with your girlfriend or boyfriend, and the argument's about something, and then they find another reason to validate what they've said, even though it's got nothing to do with the argument. You know what I mean? They find another thing to kind of twist and throw in there. It's sort of like that. Simeon Brown said something, and they're trying to find other ways to tie it in to it being a valid comment. And one of the things that's come up today is talking about, what if people can't read the signs? What if they're looking to get somewhere urgently and they can't read them? What if it's a safety issue? It's another idea that came up after the original context to tie back in to what's going on. So this is Simeon Brown today in Parliament. And this is a tweet that I put out today, but I put the tweet out because I wanted to show you what some of the talking points were. And you can listen to them in this conversation. It's a 3-minute clip. I'll play it all for you. So my tweet says this. Here's the narrative that National has settled on. So this is the Spin Alley has come up with a way to get around what he said to try and say, no, this is what I meant. That National has settled on in an attempt to back away from their weekend of dog whistling, right? Today, through the day in the news media, you should have been looking out for these things from national MPs or leaders. Critical safety signs, right? That's some words that have come up within Spin Alley that they've been talking about today. Travelling at speed, it's another one. Even the Prime Minister said it. In other words, trying to offload some of the fault of this comment to the Prime Minister and say, well, we're only saying what he's saying, which isn't true, but is what they said. And the other one, of course, fixing roads, fixing potholes. That's what came out of Spin Alley today. Those were the points that needed to be hit to have people not look at Simeon Brown as, making racially charged comments, not look at Simeon Brown as someone who is, pitching towards the alt-right or the QAnon audience or the far-right audience, the racist, misogynist audience. Now, that's actually a rewriting of history because that's not what they said. But what they do the day after, and again, any political party will do this, is they try and flip it to try and go, oh, no, you news media, you public, you got it wrong. Sorry, that's not what I said. I mean, my words might have sounded like that, but what I meant was this, right? You got that? So Simeon Brown's bailed up in one of the corridors of power today, and he has asked, first of all, to identify what's wrong with the sign. Now, we never see the sign. This is the raw footage. Maybe on the news it showed what sign they were looking at. But it's obviously going to be something like that Havelock North sign. It's going to be a sign like that. So have that in your head, even if that's not the right sign. And he gets challenged and asked what's confusing about the song. Because remember yesterday they were talking about it's going to be confusing to people. I think that's what Christopher Luxon said.
What is wrong with this sign?
Well, what we've said is in the National Party that we don't have an issue with bilingual signage when it comes to place names. But when it comes to critical safety signs, even the Prime Minister said that this morning, that it's really important people understand that quickly and easily, particularly when they're travelling at speed.
Oh,
you have an issue though.
You said we speak English, they should all be in English.
Well, I think what I was saying...
That's English on there is...
So in other words, the reporter has just repeated back to him his exact words that had nothing to do with the spin today, but now he has to reiterate the spin and explain that, no, what you heard was wrong. This is what I meant.
What I was saying there is it's really important that people can quickly understand those signages are travelling at speed, particularly on motorways or expressways.
Travelling at speed.
And, the vast majority of New Zealanders speak English. And it's really important that those signs are quickly understandable. So that was the point I was making. Do you get confused?
So this is one of the most stupid points, that people traveling at speed need to understand them. Now, okay, if we take that as gospel, we have a huge number of tourists that come to New Zealand, right? And those tourists, many of them won't speak English. So what's Simeon Brown's solution for that? Yeah. And the other thing to remember is this is not about critical signage. This is about place names. This is about, 200 meters turn off to Havelock North. To be able to need to react to those because there's speed involved, it's just not plausible. But repetition, and like in the world of radio, you get trained into this. Repetition means importance, right? If you say it enough times, you can put it another way. If you throw enough shit, some will stick. Repetition means importance. And hopefully what a political party gets is the headline. And even if they have to say exactly the same thing 20 times, they want that message to cut through beyond what was actually meant when they said it in the time. Let's go back a little bit because he gets asked a really interesting question about why can't he understand it?
Quickly understandable. So that was the point I was making.
Do you get confused being the MP for Pakuranga?
I'm very proud to be the MP for Pakuranga. I'm very proud to sing our national anthem in Te Reo and in English. We have a proud heritage in New Zealand. But at the same time, we need to make sure when it comes to critical safety signs on our roads, and the Prime Minister acknowledged it this morning, there's got to be a balanced approach as well.
Now, that's just a bold-faced lie, because this does not affect critical safety signs on our roads. Right, so that's just a straight-out lie. Stop signs aren't going to change. Critical safety signs aren't going to change.
So can you...
a conflicting message, and you probably didn't use the right choice of words, perhaps.
Well, the reality is most people understand English and speak English, and it's really important that those signs are understandable, particularly when you're travelling at speed, and critical safety signs. Even the Prime Minister acknowledged that this morning.
Prime Minister
so it's really
acknowledged
important you just get the balance right when it comes to these things.
That was beautiful. That was like a boom, 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 3 in a row. It's the second time he said it in a minute 15. Let's go back and hear it again.
Understandable, particularly when you're travelling at speed, and critical safety signs. Even the Prime Minister acknowledged that this morning.
Boom, boom, boom.
So it's really important you just get the balance right when it comes to these things.
Actually have a look at the sign though. So to you, is that not balanced? Do you not understand that?
So the point there is we need to make sure that people who come to New Zealand as well can understand what's being said on a sign, and it's critically important we get the balance right.
Critically important.
So does that not have the balance right?
And he was trying his best to say the Prime Minister says that as well, and he got cut off. Now, the point being, again, he's talking about when people come to New Zealand, they need to be able to read the signs. What if they don't speak English, Mr. Brown? Then what?
And actually, the most important thing here is that actually this whole conversation...
Can you just ask him the question, does that sign not have the balance right for you?
What we should be focused on is fixing our roads and fixing our potholes. This government's focused on changing signage.
That's actually not the question though.
Which is
Looking
what...
at the sign, Simeon, does that balance not right for you?
I can read it, absolutely can read it. But the point here is we need to get back to fixing our roads. This government wants to change signage rather than get on...
only get changed when they're getting replaced.
Well, there's a whole lot of officials at NZTA spending huge amounts of taxpayers' money focusing on changing signage rather than focusing on...
They need to be replaced.
Well, there's a huge amount of staff.
So this is the reporters now all saying what we said earlier, is it's only when they need to be replaced. So it's not like maybe they've redesigned them. And look, we saw that Havelock North. I'm going to show it to you again, that Havelock North sign. It's not really a lot of money on design because the font hasn't really changed. It's a pretty simple thing to do. Reporters are now saying, yeah, but this is when they need to be replaced. Yeah, Paul's made a perfectly good comment there. Squirmy, squirm. It's about right too.
Huge amount of staff at NZTA running a consultation process, going out there and talking with people, designing new signs. This is a waste of time and a waste of money when what they should be doing is focused on fixing potholes on our roads. That's the priority.
If you were Transport Minister, would you can this?
Well, this is not a priority for a national government. We want to get back to fixing our roads. That's the number one priority. And I think the people of the East Coast would rather their roads fixed rather than waiting for the government to come up with changing the signage. The most important thing is get the roads fixed. That's what a national government will be doing.
So would you remove this?
It's also really good to remember that National's going to get the roads fixed. This is something that's, I think, a really important point. I think what we need to be doing, and maybe I'll start doing it actively, is writing down all these things that they say. Simeon's just said, National's going to fix the roads. Cool. Okay, so if National gets in, we'll have no more potholes. It's really important that we remember these things and then should the government change, we get to use what they've said to hold them to account.
The signs.
No, but what I'm saying is what we'll be focused on is fixing our roads. That is the number one priority facing our roads in our transport system. And NZTA, the New Zealand Transport Agency, should be focused on fixing our roads, fixing potholes, not just going out there and spending huge amounts of money on changing signage, which is not a priority.
So there you go. Just again for you, the buzzwords or the quotes for today: critical safety signs, travelling at speed, even the Prime Minister said, and fixing potholes or fixing roads, interchangeable. And that was the lesson from today. So it was also important to know this is from the same One News story, what Christopher Hipkins and Christopher Luxon said. Prime Minister Chris Hipkins was also asked his thoughts on the bilingual signage debate this morning. It's not uncommon for signs around the world to be bilingual. The safety signs will all continue to be the same. Important. So stop signs and give way signs, for example, won't be affected. But in terms of using Māori place names and so on, I've got no issue on it, he said. When asked if he went too far when calling National's comments on the signs dog whistles, Hipkins said National leader Christopher Luxon introduced lots of te reo when head of Air New Zealand into the airline's branding and practices, so I'm not sure why he has an issue with this. For his part, Luxon this morning echoed Brown's words when asked about signs. We have to make sure the roads are safe, and this is an absolute distraction. It's important to know Waka Kotahi's done a bunch of safety unless he's saying it's a distraction from the real issues. I don't think he is. I think he's saying it's a distraction from the people driving, which it's not. I'm not opposed to te reo or bilingual signs per se, but it's just the wrong priority. What is wrong is what we are discussing today rather than fixing roads. So let's have a quick look, shall we? This morning on the AM show, the Prime Minister was speaking to Ryan Bridge, and this conversation came up about what do you mean? And look, I'll put my 2 cents worth in first of all. What do you mean? Who are you talking to when you reference dog whistles? And I think I've already explained who I think it is. It's if it was in America, it would be the redneck MAGA QAnoners. Now, there's a variant or version of that in New Zealand. I don't think they're quite as easy to quantify because we don't have necessarily all those terms with it. But it is the conspiracy theorist. It is the alt-right. It is the anti-vaxxer, the anti-masker, the anti-mandate. It is the people who say they're pro-free choice and anti-government other than when they need the government to prop up their businesses. It's that group. It's the people who think that those uppity Maoris are getting too bloody much. He may be more diplomatic than that. I don't have to be. That's who he's talking to. But let's hear what he himself had to say when asked that question from Ryan Bridge.
Let's move on, talk about bilingual road signs. You have accused Chris Luxon of dog whistling, which is a hugely provocative and damaging thing for Chris Luxon to be wearing. Who was he dog whistling to, in your opinion?
Well, I think if you look at the comments that Simeon Brown was making, basically saying that because most people speak in English, street signs should only be in English, I think that is a dog whistle.
To who?
And I think that, they should be called out on that.
To who?
Many other countries.
I don't know if Ryan Bridge is being disingenuous. I feel like he is, because to me it seems, look, tell me in the chat if I'm wrong, to me it seems very obvious who he's pitching it to. He's pitching it to people who think that we shouldn't be speaking bloody Maori. That's who he's dog whistling to. That's what I think. If I'm off though, tell me in the chat, but that's who I think. So I don't know what this question, unless what Bridge is trying to do is just get it on record so it can be a headline in an article. That could be the other case.
You will know this, Ryan. You've travelled around the world. Many other countries have bilingual street signs. There's nothing to be afraid of in having bilingual street signs. And in fact, if you look at where they're first being rolled out in the cyclone-affected areas of Tairāwhiti, actually half the population there are Māori. So I don't really understand what the concern is. And now they've got their campaign manager, Chris Bishop, out there saying that actually this is okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what Simeon Brown's point is.
No, I totally agree with you. I get all that. But who was he dog whistling to get votes, as you put it, Chris Luxon? Are you saying that he is dog whistling to racists?
Yes. Although, look, okay, let me just pull back. I'm saying yes. I've used this example before. it's very important what metric we use to measure things, including people, including are you racist? And I've used this example before, and you'll have heard it, and I'm sorry if I bore you with the same example, of the elderly couple holding an American flag at an Antifa rally. And all the Antifa members going past them going, racist, you're racist, racists. And my response is always, I don't know whether the elderly couple are racist or not, because holding an American flag is not a good enough metric to make that determination. So whilst I said a little bit tongue-in-cheek, yes, he's pitching to the racists, I am going to take one step back from that and say he's dog whistling to people who are who incorrectly think that Māori, for example, have got it better than the rest of them. Now, they may be racist, but there might also be people who are ignorant as well. I mean, I think it's fair to say, without being too judgy, that a lot of elderly people who grew up in a different time don't really get it. Don't really get, what institutional racism is, or long-term poverty that's aided by institutional racism. Like, they don't get it. So someone who has that opinion may not necessarily be 100% racist. Like, you're just a racist, but there's certainly racial issues and racial undertones. So you might think that I'm being a bit kind, not just being overtly saying that they're all racists, but it depends what the metric is. It's important for us to have the correct metric before we make that accusation. So is he dog whistling to racists? Well, he certainly is, but it's a little bit like not everyone who believes that may be a racist. It's a little bit like, the white supremacists will vote for parties on the right, but not everyone who votes for parties on the right is a white supremacist. You know what I'm saying? So yes, this is a dog whistle to racists, but perhaps not everyone who agrees with this bluntly is a racist. There may be a grey area in between of not understanding, of being ignorant, of in between, etc., etc., etc.
Well, the people who are objecting to having te reo Māori used in any context, I think need to think again. And I don't think...
Are they racist people in your opinion?
I don't think the national... Well, I think people can, form their own judgments on that. But I don't think that politicians and political leaders should seek to use the greater use of te reo Māori as a wedge to divide.
I actually, to be honest with you, I'm quite enjoying watching Christopher Hipkins just power on as well. I mean, it frustrates me that the politicians aren't able to do what we do and have a big long conversation with no interruptions. But the flip side to it is I also get frustrated when an interviewer has to jump in after every half sentence to make sure they get all their questions in. So it's a bit of a 50-50, but it's quite good seeing the Prime Minister finish his point without stopping after being interrupted a little bit.
Between people. Te reo Māori is one of the official languages of New Zealand. It's our indigenous language. I don't think we've got anything to fear by having te reo Māori on street signs.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but I'm talking about the language that you have used. You have accused Chris Luxon of dog whistling.
Yes.
And Kiri Allen has gone further and says that he is dog whistling to get votes. So
yes,
are you saying that anybody who opposes the signs is inherently racist?
This is the thing with words, right? I know that the term racist has kind of slightly slid, meaning it's got a different, but basically a racist says, my race is superior to your race. Your race is inferior. So I'm not trying to defend these people, but I'm going, I like to be accurate. There will be people who don't want to see, te reo on a road sign who don't think they're better than anybody else. You might be, I know if Chewie was here, he'd probably be yelling at me right now. But this is just me being really fair and honest, that there will be some people who think te reo on a road sign is not appropriate. They don't want to see it, but they're not necessarily to that level of being racist. They don't think my race is superior to yours. Now, I know that there are different connotations with that word today, and it might not be dictionary definition quite as much as it was. But, racially charged, racial, for sure. Racial, for sure, 100%. Racist, well, it's hard to tell. You can't say that 40% of the population is racist because they don't want to see Māori on whatever the number is, on a sign.
No, I'm not saying that at all, but
So
I'm
who's
saying
he dog
that there's
whistling
certainly
to?
there is a racist underbelly in some of the public dialogue around this, and that does seem to be an audience the National Party are trying to appeal to.
Okay. He's, and this is Chris Bishop, has said actually their concerns are from elderly people who have poor eyesight, who are genuinely worried about not being able to read a road sign.
Okay, we just got to put this to bed as well. So elderly people, this is national rewriting the history, right? Elderly people worried about not being able to read the road signs. You ready for this again? What problem do we have here with not being able to read that? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? So this is almost like this is a wasted question, because, I mean, I know that Hipkins didn't have this, but look at the sign. Who can't read that? Even if you don't speak Māori.
They need to do it in a hurry. Do you think that's legitimate, or are they
No,
part of the
that's not
racist
legitimate.
undertones that you're discussing?
Well, I think if he had a look at the signs, he would see that the words in English are still very prominent. No one is going to have any difficulty reading. If English is their only language, no one is going to have any difficulty interpreting what a street sign says. The other thing is, this isn't on the critical safety signs. So in terms of give way, stop signs, those sorts of things, they will still be the same as they have always been. This is around place names, it's around direction to amenities, those sorts of things. It is not the safety signs. And so one can only interpret that they have some other concerns that they're not being upfront about.
Okay. Let's talk very quickly.
There you go. So that's the amount we're going to see there. So I think racial underbelly is great. I think that's fair. Look, I mean, I'm not trying to defend the indefensible, but I'll say it again. People who don't want to see Māori place names on a street sign may not. And I guess what I'm saying is be the dictionary definition of what it means to be racist. That's what I'm saying. But certainly racially charged, racial undertones, just repugnant, revolting, people who need to learn more about the history of the country. As I said last night, if you're a part of this country, sorry, but the Māori story is a part of your story. You can't be a part of this country, even if you're. I always used to say I'm Irish, right? I'm so white, I'm nearly pale blue. I have no whakapapa to any Māori lineage whatsoever, but I fully accept, bring on board, embrace the Māori story as a part of my story, because I'm a part of this country. That story is an integral part of this country. It's a part of my story. And we talked a bit about this last night about, these so-called marketing gurus like Christopher Luxon. It seems that this unique part of New Zealand, this part of New Zealand that actually stands us apart from the rest of the world, as we said last night, there's not much, if anything else. I know some of you cheeky monkeys see things like kiwi birds and stuff, but when it comes to the culture of a country, the way it looks and feels and the people, that's about the only thing that stands us apart from any other country in the world. And if the right would actually embrace that and accept that and come on the journey with us with that, it would be better for everybody, because it's part of who we are. Even if you have no lineage, even if you can't whakapapa to any part of the Māori culture whatsoever, anything like that, then it's a part of your story if you're a part of this country, because it's an integral part of this country's story. Simple. I find that really a simple concept, and if we all got that, I think it would be better for everybody. Carl says, what is Māori for incompetence, Simeon? Yeah, fair enough. Jezza says, interesting that Luxon can use Latin, but not te reo per se. Look, I also apologise. I'm not going to get to all your texts because it's still going crazy in the background and I'm just not getting, my pen. My pen. David says, the elderly get it. They just don't want to admit it, especially to themselves. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Is it Puma? Puma 89 says, thinking about it as people, thinking about it as people as racist is a red herring. Racism is a system. The people who are being dog whistled to are those who feel the established system that centers them is under threat. So those that are in power feel like they're under threat. Those who have always had the privilege feel like they're under threat and they don't want to give up that power or privilege. That's what I read in that comment, Puma. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but thank you for your comment. And Rob saying, my partner is screaming that if you can't read that sign, then you should not be driving. Yep, very, very true. Very true. Kiwi birds, aren't they from Miami? I think that's true as well. And there we go. Have I got more in here? Oh, that was just I had another page and that was just the last sign. Just to put that up there again. That's the sign. So it's I think it's called, and I get this word a bit wrong, revisionist history. That's my dyslexia coming out when I stumble those ones. Revisionist. I said it right, and then I'm saying it wrong. I shouldn't have tried to go for it again. It's revision. So revisionist. There we go. Got it. Revisionist history, where even though it's only 24 hours, they're going back and saying, no. That's not what we said. What we said was meant to be interpreted like this. And that's what you do. And I'll say it again. All political parties do it. All political parties do it. In this instance, we're looking at National because it's an example from National, but all political parties do it. Righty ho, let us move on and let's find out. Gosh, is it 22? Holy mackerel. Did I just spend about half an hour doing that? Look at that. I want to have a look at this Labour MP, Arena Williams. This is a really strange situation. Well, I don't know if it's strange, but there is a little bit of revisionist history going on here as well. Because Arena Williams, and you probably will know about this, on the day of the election, put out a tweet that said, the $5 prescription fee was charged per item. So my dad pays around $50 a month for medicine from our local pharmacist, who he walks to and who knows him by name. Scrapping the fee, so this is the $5 prescription fee, means he'll never choose between heating his bedroom and his health. Now, what happened back at the budget time was, I don't know quite how this works on Twitter, but apparently you can you can fact check other Twitter people now. And if enough people agree with it, it can get put up as a warning. I think that's pretty much how it goes. Now, on some level, that's pretty cool because people can also keep other people in check. On another kind of more sinister situation, Twitter's becoming further and further right with more and more sort of free and easy conversations around people with the worst intentions in the world. So if you get enough of them together, then you might be able to put false warnings on, perhaps. So anyway, Arena Williams was talking about he'll never choose between heating his health, his bedroom, and his health. This is what users to Twitter got put on her tweet. The Ministry of Health have a prescription subsidy scheme, which means once you have paid for 20 prescription items, no prescription fees are charged for the rest of the year. That's between 1st of January and 1st of February and 31st of January. So what this is, it's called a high user card or something. And if you're someone who gets 10 prescriptions a month, you pay for your first 20, then the rest of your prescriptions are free for the rest of the time. Now, I'm reading up on this. If people have more information to pass on about this, if I've missed something, you feel free to put it in the chat. But it seems that Arena Williams, at the very least, was using an example of her dad having to pay a lot of money for prescriptions, yet in theory, after he pays $100, if he paid $50 a month, that's after 2 months, he wouldn't pay anything for the following 10 months. That's how it seems. It's come back today as well again, and they had a chance to have a chat with Arena Williams. This is from News Hub, because other things have come to light, like, for example, her father lives with her. So if her father lives with her, how does he have to choose between his prescriptions and his heat? Because he lives with her. She's on a good salary. She'll pay for the power. Now, I'll let her words talk through what she meant. Saying we're being fair, what she meant by this tweet, and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it.
So can you explain to me, how many prescriptions does your dad have?
So my dad recently had a health scare and he spent some time in hospital. I went and picked up his prescription from the Bilingual pharmacy, which is one that charges $5, which is a co-payment that's charged per item. So for that prescription, there were 10 items on the script. I didn't get a couple of them because we had like Panadol and ibuprofen at home. But this is what many people face, where they're handing over $40, $35 for that prescription. Because it was a new prescription, that's not what he's had in the past. But we're still, the next prescription he went and paid, and it was another $40.
You said that now with this, he doesn't have to make a choice between heating his home or buying medicines.
What I said was that he would never have to choose. So even if
Okay, so this is the revisionist history part. She just said what I said is he'll never have to choose. And she does say he'll never choose between heating his bedroom. Now, is this revisionist history or not? Because saying he'll never have to choose is like a theoretical conversation. It's like saying, if something changes in the future, he'll never have to choose. Saying he'll never choose sounds more, this is today's life. Maybe I'm being too hard on that. Maybe not. I don't know. But to me, there is a slight difference with that wording, and it could be seen as her having to do exactly on a much more minor level, what Simeon Brown just did by having to re-explain what she meant. A little bit of revisionism here.
his circumstances change, he wouldn't have to make a decision between medicine and other essentials in his life.
What's he live with you?
Yeah, the point is that if he will never have to make a choice, if he moved out of our home, if he moved into different accommodation, if something happened to me, which is the same situation that many people, especially older people, are in, where their children aren't in a position to look after them, he wouldn't have to make any of those choices.
But the inference from your tweet is that your dad's having to make those calls, isn't it?
I was trying to make the point that he would never have to, which is a situation that many people do find themselves in when they're making a choice between medicines. What this policy does is...
And look, people are saying it's kind of a beat up. Look, I get it might be, but you know me, right? That we're fair, right? And if what she was saying is that she was meaning he'd never have to, that's not what she tweeted, right? I think that's a fair thing. So whether it's revisionist or not, if I'm going to say National Party are having to explain what they said, I think because they got it horrifically wrong, it's fair to say the Labour Party MP has to explain what she said because she either got it wrong, she either exaggerated something, or she did genuinely mean it this way, but that's not how it's been written.
But it means that everyone can have access to cheaper medicine. In the same way that my dad has access to it, so do people who don't have the support of their grown children looking after them in their home.
Yeah, I mean, was it a fair representation? Like, there are a lot of people that can't actually afford heating and power. Were you trying to make it look like your dad was one of those people, or? No,
absolutely not. I think that my point was that he would never have to choose, and so I said he will never have to choose.
There we go, and that's about to cut out. Yep, people saying that I'm being pedantic, I think in a cute way, pedantic, and are you pedantic? Yes. And yes, I think it's a misleading tweet. I think it is a misleading tweet. The difference that you would have to say, yep, there we go, backpedal. I think the difference here is do we, well, I don't care about we, do you, and you need to tell me or not, accept that what she meant to say is what she was explaining? Or, like Simeon Brown, do you think that she was fudging it somewhat to try and make a point and now she's backpedaling? That's for you to decide. That's for you to decide. All right, lots of people are texting and messaging through that as well. So we will just keep on keeping on. Should I text Chewie? Let's see how far away he is, eh? Because I'm sure he would like to be in on this conversation with. I'm still at work now. He says, put it that way. Let me just go. Any times, this is Murphy's law. As soon as I hit send, 3, 2, 1, send, he'll go and he'll pop up in the conversation. Because this last conversation is what we're getting to. It's kind of the crux of bringing a whole bunch of things together that we've been talking about today. And it's to do with Simon Wilson, and it's to do with another one of Christopher Luxon's dilemmas. And again, we were talking earlier. I was talking earlier about being on the left and being overtly on the left and blatantly on the left. It's such a poor challenge to say to someone, well, you're on the left, or vice versa, well, you're on the right. Come at us with where we're wrong, with the facts and figures. Come at us with that, and we'll converse with you. We'll debate with you. But come at us with you can't be right, correct, meaning because you're on the left, or vice versa. Someone coming at someone saying you can't be correct because you're on the right. It's not a good way of getting onto it. Right. Oh, shit. I just closed down a window. I didn't mean to do that. I think I remember because you guys know what I do. I highlight text. And I just accidentally, rather than clicking on the tab, I clicked on the X like that. So I've lost the first one, but I'm pretty sure I can remember what it was. I'll just read it out. So article from Simon Wilson in the New Zealand Herald today. Nationals Christopher Luxon is fighting for the party's future. The battleground is race. Simon Wilson. So he talks a bit about Simon Luxon. He talks about will he be rolled? He's fighting for his survival as leader. It'll only come true if it becomes clear he's going to lose the election. Goes on to say this, quote, the far bigger fight he's waging is for the survival of his whole party. This might seem a strange thing to say considering National is holding its own with Labour in the polls, but National faces an existential threat this election. Not from Labour, the enemy is on the right. It's ACT and New Zealand First. And the battleground is race. Now, I'll say a couple of things here, yeah? The first thing is, I'm reading from a screen. I'm not going to see any of the text messages. I will come back to them at the end. Or, if you want, you can hold off on your text till I get to the end. And then if you start firing them through, I might be able to get to them more easily. Because I'm looking at a completely different screen to where your messages are coming. But that's what I have to do. So, Simon Wilson's position is that the enemy for National is ACT and New Zealand First. Talks a bit about Christopher Luxon going on his bowling club tour, which I think Chewie talked a bit about last night. The tour is called the Turn Back the Clock. No, sorry, it's Back on Track. They're test driving this slogan for when the campaign formally begins a bit later in the year. It's clever. It evokes the sturdy economic management associated with John Key and Bill English, while also suggesting we'll be better off if only we can find our way back to the social settings of an earlier time. Crime, climate change, educational failure, even than congested roads. They didn't used to be such a problem, did they? And what happened to our world-famous harmonious race relations? Let's get back to that. Everyone likes nostalgia. This one that says, in Birkenhead, Luxon began with a half-hour talk focusing mainly on the economy, crime and health, and then fielded about an hour of questions. Nearly all of the questions were about race. Right. The audience, largely elderly and very pakeha, was angry. No one said it out loud, but the theme was clear. In question after question, they wanted to know when Luxon was going to put those bloody Maoris back in their place. It was not pretty. And remember, Simon was there, right? So it's a first-person account. Luxon indulged them with statements like, it's alarming that Waka Kotahi is going to spend all that money on road signs, meaning road signs with words in te reo as well as English. Now just remember again, they're not, right? They're replacing signs when signs need to be replaced. So, okay, so they're spending money on signs, but they would have been spending money on signs to replace them anyway. I don't know how New Zealand Herald's going to feel about this because I'm probably going to read about 70% of this article. Talking about bilingual signs being common overseas, yada, yada, yada. Yet Luxon also tried to moderate his audience's obsession with race, right? So he's talking about racial issues, but he's also trying to moderate them, his audience. He told them the average age in New Zealand is 38. Therefore, he said, most of us came through school with some degree of familiarity with the use of te reo. What he meant was, you're not keeping up to the elderly people, the elderly white people. This goes to the heart of Luxon's problem, race. The perception of unfair advantages being handed to Māori has become the defining issue on the right. There are complaints about the quotas for Māori and Pacifica medical students, for example, although it's really noted that those students have to meet the same rigorous academic standards as everybody else. And the critics are strangely silent about the other quota, the one for medical students with a rural background. Interesting that, isn't it? There's a quota to get, like, let's just put it this way, farmers' kids into medical school. No one talks about that, but Māori, yeah, fucking oath, we're going to talk about that. As for co-governance, rather than being a mechanism for consensus decision-making, as prevails at the Waikato River Authority, it's seen as just a power grab. I want to say something as well. It's a little bit of a tangent here, but the idea about quotas, there's this idea, right? And there's this idea about always picking the best candidate. And if it's always taken based on an academic response or a metric that can be measured with numbers, I will just say this: if I was hiring two people, I would if I had two applicants and I had one position, and one of them brought something intangible to the table, like perhaps it's in a workplace that's all males and the applicant was female. Perhaps it's in a workplace where all the people were Pākehā and they were Māori or Pacific Islander or a minority ethnicity. If they're as good as anyone else, much like the Māori and Pacifica medical students and the rural medical students, bringing a different perspective into that job as well actually adds something intangible that can't be learned and can't be got from people who aren't a part of that group. So I'm not suggesting that, and I'm an old person, so I use A, B, C, D, markings. I'm not suggesting you give a job to a minority who's a C student when there's an A student available. But if you've got a couple of A students, I have no problems with the concept of a minority, a group that's not being represented well within that community, being put ahead of the other person with a very similar, if not same, experience or ratings, because that other life experience brings something important to that community. You imagine if we had, I'm being silly here, but no Māori doctors. There'd be a huge part of the medical fraternity that would be missed, that people who aren't a part of the Māori community wouldn't be able to understand or bring into a practice. Now, I know that's silly because lots of Māori become doctors without a quota system. They do anyway. But you know what I'm saying. Right. The article goes on. I've lost my mouse. There it is. It's a problem when you've got four screens. So the article talks about the power grab. People see the co-governance as a power grab. But the middle, right, the middle of the voting block, race is seen very differently. Elections are won and lost in the middle, according to conventional wisdom. This one is being fought for the hearts and minds of voters who swung to National under John Key and then swung to Labour under Jacinda Ardern in 2020. Those voters are not angry about Apiti Māori. On the contrary, they're likely to be not just familiar with Te Reo, but pleased about its expanding use. Ruby Tui gave powerful voice to that sentiment when she sang Tu Tara Mai. Tu Tara Mai, na iwi, oh way, at the Rugby World Cup. Tui is a much-loved national hero, and it was a thrilling moment, not just because she did it, but because an enormous proportion of the crowd clearly knew and loved the song. How did that happen? Because middle New Zealand, kids of all races and ethnicities learn waiata and haka at school, and the tikanga that underpins them, and bring home a degree of cultural competence that's vastly different from their grandparents, and their parents are likely to be good with that. This is the middle, the use of Māori greetings and place names is a welcome component of the TV news and widespread in daily use. We have local language that's English inflected with te reo, and it's a living language evolving all the time. We're good with that too. So the middle, who are going to decide the election, aren't so keen on this racial division and these dog whistles that we're hearing from the right. And this is Luxon's dilemma. And that's why he's trying to moderate the audience at the bowling green, because if this is all he's getting and that's all the publicity that he's getting, then the middle voter that could possibly go either way will not want to be associated with these sorts of dog whistles. National understands all this. At the least, it did under Key and Bill English. Co-governance arrangements were created in a range of situations, and according to Te Arawhiti, the Ministry of Māori Crown Relations, their government passed into law 46 treaty settlements worth almost $1.24 billion. It's an impressive achievement. Because of all this, the key Ardern voters of middle New Zealand are likely to be repelled by the racism that has emerged on the right. Back on track? Not if it's a dog whistle to grumpy voters sick of having to accommodate Māoris in their lives. Which brings us to Luxon's dilemma. He can't win both these audiences at the same time, because appeasing either one horrifies the other. He could explicitly agree with the middle. After all, isn't that where the biddable votes are? Biddable? I will call out racism at every opportunity, he told me at National's Northern Regional Conference last month, but he didn't do that at Birkenhead. Goes on to talk a bit more about this. And then New Zealand first is attracting some of these voters. That's these people who Luxon is pitching to. But it's hard to think this election is anything more than a last hurrah. ACT, however, is on the rise. Its strategy has been to chase every grumpy vote going, whatever the issue, and it enters this election better placed than it ever has before. David Seymour is the right's best performing parliamentary leader. He leads a large and disciplined caucus which has some distinct, well-defined policy goals. If ACT wins, say 20%, and National 30%, ACT will be a powerful force in the new government. So powerful, it will be well placed to become the dominant party on the right in 2026. Too much? The hard right has taken over the Republican Party in America and replaced moderate parties of the centre-right in France, Italy, Austria, Sweden, and many other European countries. There is no reason to think the same trend won't emerge here. So, what's National to do? There's no future in out-acting ACT. Oppositional scaremongering and witless nostalgia offer few solutions to the really big issues that confront us now, whether it's the cost of living, the climate crisis, or social dysfunction. Is there a place for enlightened conservatism? There should be. Hosing down the racism would be a good start. Holy crap. Yes, Guru, I agree with you. I got to the end of this article and it almost filled me. Oh, look who's going to come and join us for the last 7 minutes. There he is.
Oh, hey. Have you ever had a work meeting that just wouldn't end until it becomes some sort of suicide pact?
Did you listen to us on the way home? Did you hear anything? Did you put us on the?
No, I haven't heard a damn thing. I assume I've been pretty unplugged just generally today. Let me see if I could sum up. Chris Luxon has had to walk something back, or do a U-turn, or try and do both things at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Has Simeon Brown made a complete horse's ass out of himself?
Daily.
Yeah, okay. That's a gimmick.
Oh, how about Peter though? Late fine.
If teacher's late, teacher doesn't get fined.
Okay, so let me just, I'll read you something that wrapped up this article. So Simon Wilson has done an article based on another dilemma for Luxon, and it's actually something true we've talked about a lot to do with Luxon and also Sean Plunkett. How do you attract that far-right, alt-right, white nationalist, misogynistic, racist vote without turning off
middle New Zealand,
without turning off middle, because middle
everyday Kiwi battlers,
middle won't have a part of it. And Simon's position in his article is that middle New Zealand actually, happy to speak te reo, encourage it. Kids have been to school and learned about waiata and that sort of thing, and actually are pretty repulsed by this idea of, which is why Simeon Brown possibly, this is my assertion now, has walked back his comments so strongly, because obviously that's not going to fly with middle New Zealand. This is what Simon's saying. I'll read you this last part again, yeah? And then I'm going to play something. I've just read this, but I'll read it again. If ACT wins, say 20% of National, and National 30% of the vote, ACT will be a powerful force in the new government. So powerful, it will be well placed to become the dominant party on the right in 2026. And then he talks about
that.
Yeah, I know you're going to say that. And then he talks about the hard right taking over the Republican Party. He's talking about moderate parties of the centre right going in France, Italy, Austria, Sweden. And then that's the dilemma, what's there to do. So he's basically made a premise that the danger to National Party remaining the National Party, historical National Party, is actually ACT in New Zealand first, not Labour. That's what he said. Now, let me just get on to this last bit, and then I don't know what you're going to talk about, but because we're kind of wrapping up. You're lucky I'm still here. I normally, I'm not with you, I normally wrap up in 1 hour and 55 seconds. And
I'm the anchor. I'm the drag on the show. I know.
Here's the thing, yeah? And this, speaking of fucking nostalgia, I got to the end of Simon's article, and this is all I could think of. These two moments with this, let's be, I'll be a little bit unkind, but you can't defame the dead. This warmongering right winger in America, who we now look back on and thinking what a centrist he really was. when people in his, pardon me, when people in his town hall started ragging on Barack Obama, I was yearning nostalgically for this right to be a part of society again.
We're scared. We're scared of an Obama presidency, and I'll tell you why. I'm concerned about someone that cohorts with domestic terrorists such as Ayers.
I have to tell you, he is a decent person and a person that you do not have to be scared as President of the United States. Now, look, I
got to ask you a question. I do not believe in. I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He is not. No,
ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
That's all that needs to be said, right?
There's just a nostalgia in me, right? But a nostalgia in me for when the right didn't have to then go, yes, he's an Arab and he's dangerous and he hangs. They could actually say, stop this horse shit. But the unfortunate thing is in America, and I guess Simon's article today was talking about in New Zealand, the horse shit is filling up the right more than whatever the opposite of horse shit is. And so if that happened today in a town hall, if that happened at a town hall with Donald Trump, he'd quadruple down. So, or Ron DeSantis, any of them would actually.
Yeah, I think that's an incredibly powerful position to, actually have someone who is nominally your supporter, or at least really anti your opponent, is to go, no, I'm sorry, I can't go with you with that. You're wrong. I saw some comments from Simon O'Connor. Now, Simon O'Connor, I would put right at the top of these are the people that we need to be aware of in the National Party, that religious fundie core that they seem to have. And National really have something at risk there. I don't like National. I don't agree with a lot of their policies or even the fundamental position that they come to a lot of topics on. But I think it would be unrealistic to say that we don't need that. We need a rational, sane National, because our government relies on an opposition party, right? But they just seem to be going more and more batshit, and a more powerful act is just going to make that worse.
A well-functioning opposition is essential in a democracy. That's what
absolutely vital.
And let me say,
echoing what I said yesterday. This election is going to come down to ACT and Green. Those are the ones that we're going to really have to focus on. And I think with anybody that is as left-leaning as us, in my opinion, your vote is going to do more good in the Green Party, even if you're a Labour supporter.
If the left votes, the left wins. If the left votes, the left wins. Trust me, the left are apathetic. The left will sit at home. The left will not get off the couch. If the left votes, the left wins. Now, let me tell you one more thing. I do this a lot, right? When you hear something, see something, smell something, and it smells like bullshit, racist bullshit, racial undertones, whatever, replace what's being said with another group and see if it feels as comfortable. You've missed tonight's show, Chewie, but this has been all of us talking about, I've used Twitter. It's basically been a review of Twitter. Here's the last review of Twitter. I wonder, as the MP for Pakuranga, has Simeon Brown ever said to any one of his many Asian constituents who display signs in Mandarin and English on their shops that, quote, we all speak English. They should all be in English. I suspect he hasn't. I wonder why. Because he needs that vote. It's not a dog whistle, is it?
I remember comments along those lines when those signs became more prevalent in Auckland, and people complaining about how the signs weren't in English. And it's just like, well, you're not the audience.
You're not the customer. Yeah.
You're not the customer. It doesn't matter. But yeah.
But the point being, Simeon Brown has never come out publicly telling all those, Chinese nationals, New Zealand, Chinese citizens, that they should get all those Mandarin signs down because we all speak English. Those signs should be in English.
Yeah.
Because there's no political, there's no political currency in doing that. But if you want to bash a Māori, some currency in that. It's Luxon's dilemma. Another one.
Yeah. What was his statement today? Actually, I'm not against the signs being in te reo, but I also don't want Waka Kotahi to print them. It's like, what the fuck is that statement?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Oh, yeah. I've been super disappointed in people today. Super disappointed.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us for the last 7 minutes of the show, Chewie.
You're welcome.
John says zero faith in the Greens right now, maybe Te Pāti Māori. I think the problem with Te Pāti Māori, and I've talked to Deb about this, and she's going to come back on the long form version before the election. My concern about Te Pāti Māori, and look, they're an option for me as well for the party vote, of course, is I'll say this again really clearly. This is just my perspective. You guys obviously make your own decisions. I will not vote for a party who may threaten to sit in opposition. Like Top has actually actively said, we are going to sit across the benches, right? And the problem with sitting across the benches means you may keep votes away from the left bloc that I want to see get in. I want to see the left bloc get in. So I'm actively, my only thing about Te Pāti Māori is they'll need to come out, for me to consider them my vote, which I would, they'll need to come out saying that they are going to look to get into a coalition. Because I'm not going to give my vote to someone who will sit across the benches, because that may end up leading to a right bloc getting in. So that's where I sit.
I mean, I think Te Pāti Māori are definitely worth a consideration. I think they're a voice that needs to be in Parliament, and all credit to them. I think if you personally are looking to make an impact on this election, then you talk to the younger people in your orbit. I'm talking to my workmates and that sort of thing. If they feel like their vote counts, if they understand the issues, and if you can help them, lead them to where they need to be for the things that concern them most. Like, the more that young people are involved, the more likely we're going to get a representative democracy. We know the older crowd vote, and they'll vote Conservative, not all the time, but a lot of the time. They're the people going to the meetings. They're the people in the ratepayers groups. They're people that don't want anything to change.
Yeah.
And I know we've got some older people in our audience that are just going to go, not all old people. Yep, we know. But
you're the enlightened.
The young people don't think that their opinion counts. They don't think they're represented in Parliament. They don't think that people listen to them, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if they don't vote.
Yep, I agree. And look, let me just say to John as well, Te Pāti Māori, he says, he goes, Te Pāti Māori would supplying confidence with Labour's. I agree. I mean, what I'm saying is, if they, like Top have actively said, and you can go back and listen to my interview with Rafe if you want, they've actively said they will line up every single policy that comes along and judge it on that policy. I remember pointing out to Ralph, that means you guys are the arbitrators of any policy going through. Why would we trust 3 MPs to do that? Supplying confidence is what I consider supplying confidence, even if you are sitting in across the benches, like you don't have a ministerial portfolio. That's the same. I know they're not the same, but basically what you're saying is they're then helping Labour Green Parliament by doing supplying confidence. So that's just for clarity, right? If you sit across benches but you give supplying confidence, I'm fine, no problems at all. As if you do like what Top said, and you're actively saying we will not do that. We will not do anything other than sit across the benches to keep everyone accountable, which then makes you the arbiter of everything. And I like Raf. I mean, I like that conversation. I like some of their ideas, but I can't vote for a party that potentially could decide every single policy that goes through with 2 or 3 MPs potentially. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
All right. See, it's good you turned up, Chewie, because I've been talking horse shit for a week, and You turn up and you're fucking on point. I'm just bullshitting.
All day,
so
every day, at a moment's notice.
I think we will just put up one more time a huge thanks to our patrons. If you want to be involved in what we do, then you can head to patreon.com/Big Hairy News. We're welcoming Peter Blakely, who is in the Coffee Runner section there, one of our new ones, and also KJS, who decided today to move from the Coffee Runner to the FUEL level, the fuck you Elon level. I mean, sorry, fuel. It's because we're getting ready for the election. That's what it's about.
Yes,
getting fuel
absolutely.
for the election. That's what it's all about. And everybody else who's been a part of what we do, we really appreciate it. Actually looking forward to ramping up to the election. Looking forward to all the bits and bobs we're going to do. We're going to do new and various things, including, live streaming debates and all those bits and bobs. And if you're in and around Dunedin, we might even do some, like we did the Dunedin Mayoralty, we might even do some Dunedin special stuff as well. Maybe even bottom half of the South Island. We'll see how that all goes as well. If Today FM was still with us, we were already working on doing some stuff with them. Unfortunately, they've disappeared. All right, Chewie. Lovely to see you. I'm so glad you jumped in for a few minutes, mate. And finally gave the show some accuracy and some commentary that was on point, because the previous hour and 7 minutes was just all bollocks. You don't understand that. All right, team. Lovely to be with you all again tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. I think Chewie's going to do the first hour tomorrow night, and I'll jump in for the last 7 minutes. Is that right? Is that what we've decided? Yes? No?
Yeah, sure. That sounds super fair.
So Marxist FM tomorrow night, I think. That's what we're doing, isn't it, Chewie?
Yeah, I'm just going to play the International on a loop.
We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 p.m. team for another edition of Big Hairy News. Lovely to be with you. Stay safe. We want to see you all back here tomorrow night. Until then, my friends, hooroo.
Cheers, fam.